Welcome to the 45th in a series of shows focused on Brookline as an age-friendly community. In 2012, the World Health Organization of the United Nations designated Brookline its first age-friendly community in New England. Last year, the AARP also designated Brookline one of its age-friendly communities. All of this was a result of work by Brookline residents, the Select Board, town departments, and leadership provided by Brookline Can, an all-volunteer organization that works on issues that benefit residents of all ages. We have as our guest Paul Warren, and Paul Warren is the latest member of the Select Board. And he's accomplished a lot in a very short time, and I think we'll hear a bit about it as we go. Paul grew up in Arlington. He was moved to Brookline in 2011 with his wife, Amy, has 2 children at home that he stays with. And he was a town meeting member, and his wife, Amy, she was also a town meeting member. He is on the advisory committee in the past. And last year, 2023, he was elected to the Select Board, which was, it turns out, extremely timely. Welcome, Paul.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, yeah, it's great. And I'd like to know a little, since you're new to it, of your Select Board experience. Just give us a feel for what it means.
Yeah, it's a great question. When you're outside the Select Board, you have a different perspective. If you're in town meeting, you make a lot of requests to the Select Board. I have really enjoyed joining the board, to be, one of 5, and to be able to participate and collaborate with the others to make, some mundane decisions, but also some really strategic decisions. So I'm enjoying it. I have tremendous respect for my colleagues. I enjoy working with them, and it's always fun, actually, to have our Tuesday night meetings and go through the agenda and importantly, hear from the public. So I'm enjoying it quite a bit.
So do you relate at all to the various boards and committees? We're the Age-Friendly Cities Committee.
As the freshman Select Board member, it's what you get, which, you don't really get to pick. But the areas that really interest me, that I have a passion for, are seniors. We talked earlier, I am a grandparent in addition to having 2 very young children. And so it's a passion of mine, the issues that are facing seniors, as we'll probably talk about, housing, and certainly economic development and other areas that I care deeply about. And then planning for the future. I'm a planner. I think one of the things that I do well is to look forward and help bring people to do stuff going forward. So, planning, which I think we're going to talk about the comprehensive plan, possibly at some point. So those are 3 areas that I'd like to spend time on.
Let's jump into the one that's most recent, the MBTA Communities Act, because that was, to me, impressive, and to a lot of other people I've spoken to. So I'd really like to hear what the act is. I think I know, but I would like a description from you, if you can help us.
Yeah, so the MBTA Communities Act, which was signed into law maybe 2 years ago, essentially requires communities that are served by the MBTA, so the subway or the commuter rail, or actually adjacent to a community that's served by the MBTA. The state now requires that they rezone, so Brookline had to rezone a certain amount of acreage that has the theoretical potential to produce housing. And really it's geared towards producing family housing within a half mile of transit to address the housing crisis. As you have probably heard, there's a significant challenge with the housing availability, which is causing all kinds of problems, from driving prices up to limiting our economic growth.
Yeah, it's actually frightening. I mean, it's more the more we see, the worse it looks. So it's really important. How did you get people together? Just a quick, I mean, I know it's not quick, but if you could just give me a feel for how you do that. Because it's very rare today.
Yeah, so I guess for the audience, people may not understand. So, you know, at this past May town meeting, actually November town meeting, we were required by the end of this year to be compliant with the MBTA Communities Act. And if we didn't rezone something that was accessible, agreeable, and qualified for the law, we were potentially going to be fined. Money would be held back for grants, and we're probably going to be sued by the Attorney General. So that was what we faced. And so there was two proposals in front of being proposed at town meeting. One was the Harvard Street proposal, which was really aggressive and impactful, and people were pretty unhappy with it. And then we had this alternate proposal, which was, you know, let's just do enough to get by with the law. And, you know, I felt pretty strongly that we needed to do something to not only be compliant with the law, but actually produce housing for low, middle income and seniors, and also be able to develop our challenges with not growing we need to grow our commercial tax base. So the question is, how did I bring people together? You know, the reason why I ran for the select board was because this is something that I'm good at. I like to bring people together. You know, how did I do it? It's by having relationships with people, and, you know, and removing yourself from the politics of it, and actually allowing conversations to take place. So, you know, I get a lot of people give me a lot of credit for having this negotiation take place, but you can't negotiate a solution without willing parties and willing participants. And that's what was most important. I brought two groups together that, you know, Brookline by Design on one side, and then it was Brookline for Everyone with some other groups. It was called Yes and Brookline. And these groups typically haven't talked to each other. They trade political, you know, jabs or their perspective or their ideology about things and their ideas, but they actually never sat down across from each other and had conversations. And so that's what I did. I brought them together and just helped them understand each other, understand what their points of view were, and then we just went through the standard negotiation process. And I made them stick it out. We did it in person too, Matt, as we did.
Yeah, I've learned that. I mean, this is Zoom, but I've really learned, this is TV, but I've learned more recently than ever that in person, you can't do real solid things without at least meeting in person a few times.
And, you know, the other thing, Matt, that I learned, you know, I've been in town meeting for, I think, 5 years or so. And because of COVID, because of Zoom, you know, we became very divided in town meeting, but also town-wide. I think we're very divided. And when you become divided and isolated, and you kind of just hang with the people that you typically talk with, your differences seem to get magnified. But, you know, what I learned is the differences really aren't that great. It's the lack of relationship and lack of communication and dialogue that is missing or has been missing. And I'm really hoping that the fact that we were able to come to a compromise, it was overwhelmingly passed by town meeting, that it sets the stage for future groups working together.
I really thank you for working that. I mean, that's one of the most important issues we have of our time. We've mentioned the comprehensive plan. It's another whole activity that you've been working on. And I myself would really like to hear a lot about it, because I don't know.
Right. Well, I'll do my best. It is comprehensive for the short time we have. You know, the last time we did the comprehensive plan was maybe like, I don't know, 17 years ago, quite some time ago. Brookline did do a comprehensive plan long before there was a housing crisis, long before we were concerned about a climate crisis. You know, it was a much different time. And so town meeting authorized, actually, I helped write the warrant article and put funding in place when I was in town meeting to get the support from town meeting and the select board to initiate an update to our comprehensive plan. So we're not starting from scratch. But it really is, it's important because, you know, we're growing quickly, although you don't always see it, but we grow a little bit haphazardly. So you'll see a development here, you'll see a building put up here. But you know, the roadmap that was developed is a little old. And so the comprehensive plan will be a community-based driven process where we'll get a lot of input from the community, from different groups, not only housing, but transportation, parks, recreation, you know, really a broad set of input. And that will help create a plan that will guide the development and funding for the future Brookline for, you know, the next decade or so.
What's the process? How do we go about or a schedule?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Great question, Matt. So we are just in, there was a group that met. It had a unique name, the Planning Process Study Committee. They just finished their work. I don't know who names these things, but that's what it was named. But it was a group of, you know, really smart people that have a passion around planning and land use planning. And they met to put a process together, and they wrote the RFP, the request for proposal. That request for proposal was issued a couple of months ago. And we are now going through the process of receiving bids and presentations, and we'll be selecting a vendor, a partner that will guide us through this process. And it's going to take, you know, 18 to 24 months, I think. I'd have to go look at the specific timeline, but we're just in the process of picking them. The vendor, once we negotiate and get everything signed with the vendor, will then, the consultant will then put together a committee of people. This will be a broad committee representing multiple different groups and constituents that will then help guide the process of bringing the community into the discussion and getting input.
Everybody must be represented, or we don't. We end up.
It's not a comprehensive plan if it's not comprehensively represented, Matt. So you know, we're going to have a role called, I think they're going to be called engagement ambassadors. And what we'll do is we will identify ambassadors to the various constituencies. So there'll be someone for seniors, be someone for students, for, you know, all the bicycle, everything, parks. And those folks will help us make sure and hold us accountable to bring the input from these various interest groups. Because, you know, everybody needs to have a say and be heard on the comprehensive plan. Otherwise, it's not comprehensive.
Yeah, and older adults are not one group. Nobody's one group.
That's right. That's right.
The age spread for older adults is very large and involves lots of different factions. And I would like to see at least a couple of those represented from different levels. So that would be really great.
Well, Matt, I give you permission to hold me accountable in making sure that happens.
So I will see you on the program again in the future as the comprehensive plan moves forward, and I'd love to discuss it and hear what's happening. Okay, another major issue for older adults and everybody else, frankly, is pedestrian issues. So there are lots of people with all kinds of situations, and I do want this focused in the select board and every place else. We had a complete streets policy. I'm not sure what that is today. Let's start with that. I mean,
yeah, it's a great, so, you know, complete streets is a policy and a philosophy for Brookline and other communities. It's a standard approach to making sure that our public way, so the sidewalk to sidewalk and the street in between, is accessible, safe, and serves all constituents. So, you know, there was a period in our time where the public way was really geared towards cars and trucks. And so there's been a shift. And so what Complete Streets does is it's a philosophy and a policy for Brookline, and it's how it approaches the reconfiguration or redevelopment, resurfacing, whenever we go to a street or an intersection and we're going to redo it. We take a step back, We make sure that the sidewalks are ADA compliant. We make sure that the crosswalks are, you can actually make it across the street in time before the light changes. It includes traffic calming. It now includes micromobility and all these various devices that we're starting to see pop up and compete for, a really a restrictive space. And it is intended to make sure that all users are safe. And as a grandparent and a parent of small children, I live this every day. I know how uncomfortable it can be walking down the sidewalk and competing with micromobility devices that suddenly pop up. I know what speeding traffic is like when you have a child on a bike, and what it's like to, be on a narrow sidewalk with cars going by you at 45 miles an hour. It's intimidating. So I live this every day, and I think it's an important component of what we do going forward.
So that mentions, there was an article in the Times about the fact that so many deaths have occurred and the rise in deaths at night for driving, et cetera. And they're not sure of all the reasons, but it's very clear that it happens. And it has nothing to do with the pandemic. It's something that happened before and it's just continued. Street lighting for pedestrians is very similar.
Right.
Pedestrians, I understand the sidewalk versus the street, but street lighting is important to keep in mind as we move forward with complete streets. And what's the budget content? That's expensive, right?
It's expensive. It's like 60 grand or 100 feet. I mean, it's a lot of money to do pedestrian lighting properly, right? It's not a light that's above the tree canopy that lights the roadway and the sidewalk. It really is, ground level lighting that helps guide you. And yeah, it's very expensive to do, capital intensive wise, because just imagine that, the wiring that has to take place, the conduit, getting electricity to it, and then putting the fixture in. But it's really important. Again, I live this every day. My mother-in-law moved from South Portland to 2 blocks around the corner from us. And she wanted to be close to her grandchildren. So we walk from our house to grandma's house just about every day for a visit, and vice versa. She comes our way. The lighting is a huge challenge for her to be able to walk. And so we live on Collins Street. So she walks, she's actually in Boston. She lives on the Boston side of St. Mary's. And the lighting between her home, her condo, and our home is not great. And when she first moved here, she tripped because the sidewalk was raised. The root had kicked up the cement. She tripped and fell. She couldn't see where she was going. So we do experience this, and we need to be very conscious, not only for complete streets, but outside of the scope of complete streets, because if it's complete streets, we're never going to get pedestrian lighting townwide, right? And it can't just be in our commercial areas. It needs to be in the neighborhoods where people are walking and transiting. So
our example is Winchester.
What's that?
Our example is Winchester Street,
Right,
where the Council on Aging, where the senior center is.
That's right.
That street itself, there's lots of them like that, and worse and better, but it's one that we run into constantly. So
Right.
it's an example. I'm just, my focus there, and I think yours too, is to keep it in mind on everything we do.
Right.
Because you're right, it's too expensive to look at just light everything. But everything you do, like the Washington Street redesign, I'm sure, and I'm hoping that they're concerned with lighting as well as street lighting and sidewalk lighting, as well as they are with everything else in that project.
And lighting is just a component of it. But even lighting, if we light up a sidewalk that hasn't been maintained,
right,
and has tripping hazards, you're still going to trip and fall. And again, this is a perspective, a lens that we need to have for our aging population, because my 6-year-old trips on the sidewalk, falls down, dusts himself off, and gets back up. An older adult trips and you have a broken bone. So it really is.
And I know people that have tripped on sidewalks and broken bones.
Yeah,
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right. So that certainly happens to be an issue for everybody, but very much an issue for the older adults. There's no question.
Right. So it is lighting, but it's also the condition and maintaining the sidewalks so that you can safely navigate them. I had a constituent call me the other day just before the snowstorm. Her mother is 105 years old. She's lived in Brookline for like 43 years. And the tree roots out in front of her condominium building, her apartment, have grown to the point where they buckled the sidewalk.
Right.
And she has a pretty high-end wheelchair that her daughter helps get her to appointments on, and it's really dangerous for her to navigate that. That's not lighting. That's just everyday. Let's make sure that the walkways and the sidewalks can be navigated by our most vulnerable.
Thank you. And that is not as expensive. That's attention more than anything else.
That's attention. That's pavement. I've had the same. One of my neighbors is blind, and I learned quite a bit during the pandemic about audible signals and how critical those are for the visually impaired. They can't find the crosswalk if that audible signal is not beeping. And I never knew that they were even there. Frankly, I just heard a beep and you don't pay attention to it. But this is critical.
Oh yeah.
For people that have disabilities to be able to navigate our roadways. It's hard for me to navigate our roadways, and I can see. Imagine them without having the aid of the audible signals. So
no question. We've actually had a show on that. But actually,
really?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's really,
you're right. I mean, it's a good point. Really good point. I'm just going to go through a whole bunch of other issues. I certainly want to know what you might list as important issues that we should pay attention to. You listed two, obviously. You listed one.
Yeah. So I there's big things and there's little things, but for certainly for your viewers, I was the guy that put a stop to. Remember those rental scooters that we were all tripping over the sidewalks?
Thank you.
I actually ended up working with Heather Hamilton, who, she did a great job, and she realized these things were a challenge, and we worked together to put a resolution together to put some parameters around these. But pedestrian, I'm very concerned about the public way. I'm concerned that the micro mobility devices are starting to come back. I see them regularly. You've seen the big wheel thing that I don't know how they ride them, but they're on one wheel. But a lot of this stuff is starting to show up on the sidewalks.
Yeah.
And I'm really concerned about that. It's difficult to enforce. I think it's an education issue for them, but it is incredibly intimidating for aging adults to have a device coming at you, either towards you on a sidewalk or coming up behind you. It could just be destabilizing balance-wise. It is very intimidating. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about the condition of our sidewalks. They're in difficult shape. It's again what my 6-year-old can deal with, or I can deal with, is much different than what an aging adult that may have some limitations. And then this is all infrastructure stuff. I sent an email out. I have a pretty good email list.
Yeah, no, I'm on it.
Yes, and and I think you may have sent. I asked people to send me their 3 budget requests. I get a tremendous amount of feedback. You should know, across the board. But the thing that was the number one requested budget item was fix the roads and sidewalks, sidewalks, and lighting. It was the number one. Just make the infrastructure safe for us. The bicyclists, potholes are a big risk for them. Walking across a street with a big pothole, you can trip and fall. These are important things, and expectation from the community, the taxpayers, especially when your taxes go up 10%. You want to make sure things are.
Yeah, right. I mean, people decide one way or another whether they want to feel that we should be spending that much. But whatever we're spending and whatever we increase, you want to see.
So that's an area. Infrastructure is important to me. The other thing that I have a strong passion for, because I came out of it, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you if it wasn't for affordable housing. I came out of Section 8 when I was younger.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, so
And you've been working on that,
but real affordable housing, not let's build $4 million condos and hope trickle down price decreases. That's not going to happen. But deed restricted affordable housing, workforce housing, and senior housing, because I'm hearing a lot from aging adults saying, I want to stay in Brookline. It's getting really hard for me to stay in Brookline because
and the same thing as anybody working in what used to be called middle class, as they watch their apartments become half their income is in order to stay in their apartment rather than have to figure out how to live at a distance or not have an apartment.
Right. So I've the other thing I've been working on is I helped bring an article to town meeting for water and sewer discounts. It got referred back to the select board. Town meeting wanted some more details, but I think we need to do everything that we can to create opportunities to help our aging population stay in Brookline. And even a couple $100, $300 a year off your water bill, that matters. That certainly helps put money in other areas. So we need to do that.
Yeah. Well, communicating. How do we get in touch with you? Now you started to describe it.
My phone numbers, I prefer phone. I get a lot of emails, but you and I have talked. My preference is to call people. I talk to people on the phone. You can text me, but really I like to talk to people on the phone. That's my preferred mode. So my phone number is 617-869-5430. When people send me an email and they say, Paul, I have this issue, they're surprised when I call them back. I call them instead of sending an email. It really is the better way for me to communicate. But they can also send an email to my brooklinema.gov account. I'm P. Warren at brooklinema.gov. That's another way to communicate with me. But just know that I get hundreds of those emails. So a phone call is always appreciated. I love to talk to people. I love to hear their voices, and it helps me understand better what they're going through.
Now, is there anything else you wanted to make sure you communicated before we have a short time, so we're almost done?
Oh, there's so much to do. I guess I would encourage your audience to tune in on Tuesday nights. We are broadcast on Big. Sometimes it's exciting, sometimes it's mundane, but staying informed and plugged into what your government is doing is how you hold us accountable. Don't let us operate on autopilot. You need to stay plugged in. So that would be my request is please continue to engage with your.
Yeah, and I'll add to that it's to look at brookline.news because it's the only it's now real local news.
That's right.
And it's the only place that I can find it, that it's that relevant and that keeps up with things. So, and also the town puts out a newsletter, but that's periodically. That's not as
Chaz's newsletter, and then and there also is there's a portal that you can sign up for updates from the town, notifications and stuff like that. It needs a little bit work, but stay engaged.
And with election coming, also the town clerk starts putting stuff out.
We're going to have a busy campaign season coming up. So,
well, I want to thank you, Paul. I think really you can come back anytime.
I will take you up on that offer, and I appreciate all that you're doing to keeping our community informed.
So I want to thank everybody for watching us. The show will be rebroadcast perhaps several times over the next few weeks. It's also on the Brookline Can website. It's on the Brookline Can Facebook and formerly known as Twitter X accounts. And we welcome you back next time. Take care, be safe.
Thank you.